In 1959, Peter Tripp, a New York DJ, decided to stay awake for 200 hours straight, which is over 8 days. With sleep scientists present, what followed is nothing short of fascinating. For the first 3 days, all went well. He performed normally in the New York Times Square with his usual humor, but something changed in the 4th day. We started seeing some behavioral anomalies. Normally a jolly fellow, he became rude and offensive. His body temperatures became lower than normal. The lower it went, the crazier he got. On the 5th day, he started to hallucinate. He started seeing spiders and webs, signs of mental impairment. He saw people that weren't there. He heard voices that weren't present. In medical terms, he developed what is called an acute paranoid psychosis. From personal experience, in undergraduate years while I was studying medicine, I used to pull all-nighters all the time, and my sleep schedule used to be all over the place. I now know that that was a terrible idea. I would go to the exam hall feeling groggy, struggling to retrieve the information that I've stored the night before, outright just underperforming. In fact, this effect was shown by an experiment done on rats. One of the rats had just learned to navigate through a maze, and a specific set of neurons fired while it navigated the maze. What was interesting was that the same set of neurons kept firing again and again, thousands of times, while the rat was sleeping. The rat was consolidating the day's learning the night after the learning had occurred. And if the sleep was interrupted, it disrupted the learning cycle. Sleeping requirements can vary from person to person, but generally 7 to 9 hours is a good range to start off from. If you don't get this amount of sleep, it cripples the thinking and rationalizing process. It destroys attention. Your short-term memory cannot be converted to long-term memory. Your emotions are unstable, and sleep loss even affects manual dexterity. So imagine a sleepless soldier working with complex military hardware in the thick of the night. He's prone to making mistakes that could cost dearly. It's not just your brain, but your body takes a toll as well. The body goes into a state of stress, which is accompanied by stress hormones. And prolonged exposures to these hormones can lead to heart conditions. You don't metabolize well. In the dwindling insulin release, you can't use glucose, which is brain food. You accelerate the aging process quite frighteningly. So it's established that bad things happen when we don't get enough sleep. But bad things could happen during sleep as well. In the olden times, a saber-toothed tiger can just sneak up on a poor man's cave while he's sleeping and have him for his dinner. But why is it that something that leaves us vulnerable to predators and practically shuts us off from the world is so important that we spend 1/3 of our time sleeping? Let's dive a bit deeper. Sleep might look like a passive process, that you're just lying in the bed, unconscious, but in fact, sleep is a very, very active process. The brain is not resting at all. On this neurological battlefield, there are two armies fighting against each other. One wants to put you to sleep, the other wants you to stay up. One is the homeostatic sleep drive, and the other is the circadian arousal system. It's an interesting war in that the longer one army controls the field, the more likely it is to lose the battle, and then you sleep. Conversely, the longer you sleep, the greater the probability becomes that the homeostatic sleep drive will eventually be defeated, and you will wake up. And this brings us to chronotypes. Are you a lark, an owl, or a hummingbird? But before we go there, we need to talk about circadian rhythm. This is a series of internal clocks in our brain that schedule the sleeping or waking experiences and define the time for it. It even works if you're underground in a cave with no access to sunlight. Right, let's come back to the birds. If you are a lark, you wake up early, you'll be most alert during noon and feel most productive at work just before lunch, and you sleep early as well. This is what we call a morning person. If you're an owl, you'll prefer to wake up a little later in the day. You'll be most alert at around 6 p.m. and feel most productive in the late evening. You wouldn't want to go to bed before 3 a.m. You need an alarm clock to wake you up, and you stay caffeinated throughout the day. Don't worry, I'm not psychoanalyzing you. That's just what the types are. The lark and owls make up about 20% of the population. The rest of us are hummingbirds, which is in between the larks and the owls. And then some hummingbirds can be more owlish and some can be more larkish. So once you figure out your chronotype, you can modify your behaviors to do your most productive work in the hours designated by your circadian rhythm, which means you're not fighting your circadian rhythm, but rather taking advantage of it. It also matters what part of the day you're sleeping in. Daytime sleep does not equate with a solid nighttime sleep. It's because in continuous daytime sleeping, your circadian rhythm is telling you that you should be awake, and vice versa. To stay most productive, we also have what we call as nap zones. It's a period of time in the mid-afternoon when you feel particularly sleepy. It's not the heavy lunch, it's not the tiredness of the day, it's just that the brain really wants to take a nap and does not care what its master is doing. It matters because our brains do not like working in that period. A NASA study showed that a 26 minutes afternoon nap reduced the flight crew's lapses in awareness by 34%, 16% increase in reaction times, and their performance stayed consistent throughout the flight time. This is a whopping increase in productivity across the board. A 45-minute afternoon nap produces similar boosts that last more than 6 hours. Importantly, if you do have to pull an all-nighter, sleeping 30 minutes before you do that keeps your mind sharper in the later hours. With a good night's sleep, you are more likely to get groundbreaking ideas when you wake up. I sometimes get a 3D render or animation idea in the morning. A healthy night's sleep can boost learning significantly, particularly which involves learning a procedure. So if you are learning a procedural skill, you need to take advantage of the superpower that's already inside of you. So, what are some take-home messages that we can take from all of this so that we can use sleep as a weapon of productivity? Number 1 is to get a good night's sleep to reap the true potential of your brain. Number 2 is to establish your chronotype. Are you a lark, an owl, or a hummingbird? I'll link some tests in the description to find out what your chronotype is. Once that is established, you can go to number 3. Which is to set your schedule to match your chronotype to get advantage of those productivity peaks. Number 4 is to respect the nap zone. If you can get half an hour of nap time, then great. If you can't, then please do not give high stakes presentation or critical exams during this time. You are physiologically underperforming at that time. Businesses can get a leaf out of these findings as well and organize dedicated nap times for the employees. Investing half an hour to get a 34% ROI seems like a pretty good deal. In NASA researchers' words, what other management strategy will improve people's performance? 34% in just 26 minutes. Number 6. If you have no other choice but to pull an all-nighter, then please take 30 minutes of sleep time before doing that. Let me know if this makes sense to you and what chronotype you are. Like and subscribe if this was helpful, and I will see you soon. Farewell.